Right. Right. Just double checking this is streaming. Right. Okay. Just double checking this is streaming. Right. Share it to Facebook. Right. In theory, that should be streaming to Facebook as well. In theory. Double checking this is streaming. Right. Share it to Facebook. Right. Now, move that down out of the way. Now, I was just going to do I'm doing some editing of some old photographs taken back a couple of years. And I was going to just show what one of the tools in Photoshop, the delete and replace tool, I think it's called, can do. But first of all, I thought I'd play around with one of the bigger panoramics I did. I had a series of 6 images, and I tried to do a HDR panoramic, and it had issues because there wasn't enough overlapping, which can be seen by these here. So I broke it down and did them in pairs, which gave me these 3 images. It then still had a problem with them, so I took each of these, I think it was these 2 first, then this one added later on, into Photoshop, and I had to use transform to move, in this case, this area up here to line up with this a bit better. Because obviously in a landscape where there isn't a lot of detail, I should have overlapped these a lot more than they were. And I might have had a better chance. But sometimes, if you're lucky, if you reshape this, in this case, it was just bringing this down a bit further to match that. Sometimes, if you can get the photograph close enough so that it's looking for this edge along here to match this edge along here, and if you can get it close enough, then the auto align will work, and that's what happened. It did the auto align, and after a bit of playing around with each of the 3, I got that. Now, because I prefer to work on the DNGs and they take up a little bit less space, and I'm going to keep the DNG as an original eventually, I saved this as that PSD there. Then I exported it out as a DNG there. And so I don't need these 3 anymore. That's the PSD. I do need to synchronize that folder, because when you create a DNG from a PSD, and in other words, just all I did was right click and went export as DNG, it doesn't add it back into the library, so you've just got to resync it. Hey presto, that's the PSD, which again I don't need. There's the DNG. There's not much editing to do on that, but I don't need the PSG. You can PSD. You can see here where the overlaps are. I also did a pre-crop in Photoshop just to get rid of all this white space to reduce its file size. Also cropped in here, so I don't need that either. That's what I'm going to work on now. There's not a lot of work to do on this in Lightroom. I might tweak texture a bit. I might go into calibration and just see if bumping this up will just brighten up the greens a little bit. Because it was quite this bit here was quite yellow, so that's pretty much it. None of these shadows are so deep that they need to be brightened. So I'll shoot that to Lightroom. Photoshop, I mean. Now, the first thing I'm going to do in Photoshop, because what I'm about to do, is duplicate that just in case I don't like the results. So, first of all, we'll do the easy bits. Select this. Right click. Delete and fill selection. That's what it's called. I can never remember its name. That sorts that out. Now, normally what I do for these is I'll duplicate each, because there's only a handful of stages, I'll duplicate each of these just to make things a bit easier in case I find I don't like the results. I'm reasonably confident we should be okay. Yeah, like that. Edge down. Now, the only thing is, I don't really like this gravel sitting here, so I might get rid of that as well. Am I duplicate? Go right over here into the green. See what we end up with. And this is the power of this delete and replace. It actually does a really good job. Now I've got that. Just out of curiosity, what's its size? Oh, yeah. I'll bump that up a bit. Back to the normal. Now, the only other thing I might do here, just to see what it looks like, Okay, I'm happy with that so far. Is I might try a sky replacement. The good thing with sky replacement is it creates its own, I export it as its own layers, so I don't need to duplicate the layer here to be safe. I'll try a sky replacement on here just to see if I like it better than the sky that's there, because it's a pretty, while it's okay, it's a pretty bland textureless sky because it was a cloudless day. I would like to see a bit more sky. That suits. Now that looks a little bit better. Bump the brightness up a bit. Blue that up because that other sky was quite blue. Now, I'm not too happy with this white cloud up here, and this here I'm not too keen on. So what I might do is bump the scale up. More. Shift me sky a little bit. Need to go up a bit more. There, that gives me I like that a little bit better. That's me sky. Yeah, it doesn't need to be that dark. You can go quite light because it was a sunny day. Bring back the blue. Pays to experiment with the edges. See, that's about where it was. I want to shift the edges in a little bit. And two to play with here are your edge lighting. And your edge shift. I don't want very much color adjustment. Because I blued that up, I don't want that blue to bleed over into my image. Zoom in a bit. Close look at that. Looks okay. Reasonably happy with that. The other thing, if you do a sky replacement, you've got to remember that each of these bits are individual. So if you don't like the masks, etc., or some of these bits, you can remove them individually. I see that foreground color. There's a slight change there. It blues it up a little bit, so I might get rid of that. Before, after. Now, Next thing is to check a few things. Some rocks here which I'm okay with. What I'm looking for here is any odd bits, because there was some quite white rocks in this place. It's possible there might be some white bits that are blown out that you're not going to be able to fix easily. That could be a bit of a distraction. While I'm not going to do every single one of these, ones like this could be done away with. So this is where I use the remove tool. It's quite good at this. Couple like this. While they are naturally there, they just create unusually large bright spots. Because what I'm trying to do here is create an image, not just a evidential photograph. So there's things like this bit over here on the far right, just sticking in from the edge. And go. Just double check that replaced bit of grass. Nothing too major here. Probably tweak a couple of these. There's one over here that's catching my eye that I just want to have a look at. That bit just there. What happens if I just run it over there? Yeah, it's better. Less of a distraction out of the corner of my eye. There. Hey presto, I have finished. Press that down. That's that one done. So there, go back to this folder. And one of the ones in here could be a bit of a problem. Where is it? There. Because when I did joined this together a panorama, came a little bit close to that tree. But I'm hoping those couple of pixels mean there's enough of a gap there that we should be okay. Was I going to ever create this preview? I'm going to wait around on that. But anyway, so that's what I've got there. So it's another view of the same location. And hopefully we should be able to fix the blue sky here. I'll do the same down in this bottom right hand corner and up the side of here and see how it goes. I don't think there's anything I need to do in here. Just tilt it slightly. None of these bits are dark enough that I need to tweak anything other than a bit of calibration in here. Possibly a little bit of texture. That's pretty much it. Send that to Photoshop. Again, we've got a white spot there and a white spot there. Seems to be taking a while. I suspect this is quite a large. I'm guessing this is most of my photographs. I keep it 7,500 pixels, mainly 7,900 pixels wide, mainly because of the fact that they're that's the native size of the sensor, basically. So for panoramics like this, I go to about 9,000 wide-ish. Otherwise, the file size gets ridiculously large. I don't need it overly large. So if this ever opens, it's taking its sweet time. Okay, it was open, just wasn't showing up in the thumbnail. How many pixels wide is this? Yeah, it's 19,000. Don't need it that big. It's a fairly wide, narrow one, so what I might do is knock this down to 10,000 wide. This is pretty much what I did with that other one because it was huge. It was 29 or something thousand wide. I don't need it that big, so what I do, save this as a PSD. I'll just leave the naming as is. I'll also leave this open to do the editing on. Okay, saved as a PSD. Go back to here. Synchronize that folder. While it's doing that, I'll go back to Photoshop and finish this off. Now, hopefully, if I'm careful enough, close that down, I should be able to select around this bit of tree. Sweet. Yep. And that is a bird. Get rid of that while I can see it. One thing that pays to do, probably relevant because I'm replacing the sky, but one of the things that pays to do when dealing with panoramics like this is to see blurred, out of focus birds in the distance in some areas, or the other one I have trouble with is mosquitoes and things like that. Patches on the rest later. I'll go across and deal with this first. Now for this, see how it goes if I just select the whole lot. Yeah, they did a pretty good job. A couple of these annoying white spots I'll remove on here. Fine. Not sure that I'll remove this time. So see what happens if I do that. If that looks a bit better, it's not quite so obvious. And then the other thing I've noticed with this one is this down here, a bit of branch and crap sticking in from the side. So what I'll do for that, I might do it in stages, but we'll see. See how that goes. Yeah. It didn't go too well. I find for ones like that, the delete and replace is generally a little bit better. There. I'm not so much going for sharp detail down there, just getting rid of the distraction. Now, test out the sky replacement. See what this one looks like in here. We'll first bump the scale up massively. Brightness up and blow it up a bit. That looks a bit better. Push that over a bit. Yeah. The other thing you can do with the sky replacements the other thing you can do with the sky replacement is play around with the opacity of it, because that's a uninteresting sky, to say the least, but it was the sky that was there. But that might be a bit too much. So sometimes somewhere in the middle, Should be just right. That is the original D&G. Down here. Oh. Oh. There's my PSD there. It's saved into there, okay. Now I'm going to do the same thing here. I've shrunk the size of that PSD, so go export as D&G. Back to here. Here's my D&G. Sean library. Right. D&G PSD. Don't need the PSD. Get rid of that. So D&G. I go back into here. That's the original D&G. Don't need it. It's another one I haven't decided whether I'll keep it or not, but we'll see. Now, so this is another one of those panoramics that I did. Overlaps here look a little bit better. It still may have trouble because there's not a lot of detail for it to work on. So it may have trouble finding the overlaps. But we'll see what it does. Photo merge, HDR panorama. See if it can get anywhere. Takes a wee while, this. The problem with the panoramas and Lightroom and Photoshop and any software is it relies on overlaps and being able to find similar pieces in each of the photographs to find out where edges are and where objects are and things like this. And some landscapes don't have enough detail, and sometimes where normally you do just a 25% overlap, sometimes you end up having to go to a 75% overlap just to have a hope in hell. If you've got houses and cars, or houses and parked cars and stationary people and things like that, it's a lot easier. It's when you get large landscapes that don't have a large number of key points that it can use. Because if you're doing a standard panoramic, each of the photographs is going to be slightly distorted from each other anyway, just because your angle's slightly different for each shot. And what it's doing is trying to find those bits, overlap and join them together. And sometimes it struggles. Because this is different than the panoramic system inside a phone where you're doing it all in one hit, where it's automatically taking the photographs as you move your phone along. Of course, the more photos you got, the longer it takes. Yep, it struggled with that one. So now I'll just evaluate whether I actually want to join it together. And I think I might. So what I'd do is I'd take these four, HDR panorama them. I wasn't thinking properly when I took these. I took them in a bit of a hurry. I should have taken a little bit more time and lined things up better and got greater overlaps, because see, we got a slight distortion here. I find perspective is the best one most of the time when using the Lightroom Panorama stuff. But in this case, this might be a better option instead of perspective. Because it distorts them a little bit less. sometimes on a panorama being done like this, you find that there's just one set that's the problem, and sometimes you can just, they're not so important, you can drop them out. But now the hope is that when I come to join these three together as a panorama, it should be able to find enough. Failing that, I might have to take them into Photoshop and manually do it if I need to change the shape of each of the images. What have we got coming up after that? Of course, panoramas end up being quite large. I'll try to keep the sizes down because even 7,900 pixels wide is going to will print quite nicely at 300 dpi, about the width of about a 60-inch TV, I suppose. Since I'm not ever likely to print them that size at that resolution, there's no need to have them much bigger than that. Being panoramas, I'll make them a bit bigger. But now I've got three images down here. Which I will now have a crack at joining as a panorama. See if we can get any. Looks like we struck it lucky as to join those together. Trouble is, it's a little bit distorted, a little bit lopsided, but what I might do when it's done is redo that using the perspective option and see if it makes any difference. This is where sometimes you sort of have to try some of the options to see what you get. And see if the result is what you like. I could just shoot all of these three through to Photoshop and do it in Photoshop. But generally I find it easier to do it in Lightroom. Except for those rare occasions when Lightroom can't quite get its head around it. Let's try that again with Panorama. But this time we'll try perspective. I'm not sure that perspective does anything better, to be honest. So I'll take that. I will go in here, crop it, because I don't need all that up there. Don't need all this down here. What I do want is change that. The important thing here is the width from across here. I do want to rule out that shrubbery over here a little bit. I do want that bit of shrubbery in, and do a bit of straightening. I want a reasonable amount of foreground. That shine I can deal with probably. That I might get rid of. See what that looks like. Yeah. One thing Lightroom is you really can't do much with the transform, but for things like this it can be reasonably handy in the fact that I can pick that as my line, and that is my line. You can't do much about the angles. I don't mind leaving a little bit of bush there because I can remove that later. That gives me enough room. Yeah, did move off. Yep. This is a little bit more rounded than I recall it looking like. As you can see, I've got a few of these in here. If I look at this one here, it doesn't look quite so rounded in the middle. That's fine. Send that through to Photoshop. First thing I'll do is check its overall size. 15,000. No, that's okay. Don't need to change that. Now in Photoshop, what I can do in here is if I go to transform, then choose this up here. What I can do is grab these two here. I can grab anywhere in here. I can just grab the middle and go down just a little bit. Go to here. And that just drops that from that to that, which was a bit more realistic. And one thing you can do with the healing tool if you're adventurous enough, I could use the delete and replace thing, but I can use this So it's almost a straight line and it's all blue across here. Pick a size that's in there. Click, hold down shift, just drag right across. Nice straight line. The stream may go in and out. It seems to be having a resource problem here. Right, it's delete seems to have fixed that. Okay. This one down here, on the other hand, this one down here, probably better suited to do it this way. Let's see if it works. Yeah, it obviously extended that, but there it made some quite good assumptions about it. Now, we'll see what happens when I use the same thing on here to deal with this stick that's in the foreground that I'd prefer not to be here. I can handle life if it has to be there, but I prefer it not to be there. Yep, did that okay. There's a little bit here that I would like to get rid of. And that bit there. And of course we've got this here. Now I could have cropped straight through there, fine, but I normally would have done that, but with this tool now, there is a very good chance I'll get an okay result from doing this. Yeah, that looks not too bad actually. Leave that stick for a moment. Anything I need to look up close? That's all right. The only other thing is just here. That stick there catches my eye and I don't want it to. I can live with it if I have to. If I select around here very carefully, well, even not that carefully, see what results it comes up with. Ooh, that's horrible. What about good old content-aware fill? Sometimes content-aware fill can be a little bit better because you can control where it's coming from. I see already the result is a little bit better, but what I can do is remove all this up here. Which will force it to make its choices a bit differently. Hopefully what I'm doing is forcing it to choose from down here. That's a little bit better. It's not perfect, but because I've got it exporting it, doing it as a separate layer, what I can do is make a combined layer up there and come to here. See what happens if I use the remove tool on here. Now, that is definitely looking a bit better. I think I'll leave this because I've got that log there. See, I might remove this. See what it looks like without this. This may or may not be a good idea. Well, that ended up being not too bad, actually. To that end, I'll tidy that up as well. There, just looks a little bit tidier in the foreground. These bits here are not too bad. So Some people may say this is a little bit excessive, but they're quite large distractions. And now we've got all this cleaned up here and pretty good looking. And then we've got a log here, a bit of rock or log here and here. And the other bit that annoys me a little bit is this bit over to one side over here. It's a little bit brighter than I would probably like. Now that's smoothed it off there and taken the brightness away, so your eye isn't quite so easily pulled to the side. This is the advantage with these tools now, is you can do things that you probably normally wouldn't have bothered doing in the past. Right, I'm happy with that. Select a lot of them, Control E. Now the only thing on top of here would be possibly seeing what a sky replacement looks like on here. Just again, because that sky is a little bit unexciting. Okay. We want that portion of the sky there. The brightness up, the blueness up. Oh, not quite that far. Bump the scale a little bit. That cloud touching the edge. That cloud matches the light that's over there anyway. Color adjustment, not a big deal. Edge lighting, again, not a big deal. Don't need much in the way of edge lighting there. Fade edge, don't need anything much there. Shift edge, looks about right to me. Again, I'm deleting the foreground layer, mainly because for this image it's not needed. One thing I might throw in here is a hue saturation. No, not a hue saturation. vibrance. So I'm going to put the vibrance down and hue saturation up. I want to bring the yellows and greens out. It's better. Now, what I said the size, this is 1564. Let's change it, round that to 15. Actually, I might just round that to 14. And basically, that's that. But another bit of editing for the day. This time, basically HD panoramas and using the remove tool and the delete and replace tools to not lose too much of your picture. So that's basically it. Oh, before I forget, because I have a bad habit of forgetting these things. If you like some of my live streams and other videos, please do subscribe to my channel. That would be nice.